present. Time is now 12:04 p.m. on this 16th day of June 2020, and I call this meeting of the United Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. All the board members that are present here and online, they can state their full name. Javier Montemayor.
Juan Roberto Ramírez.
Ricardo Rick Rodriguez.
And myself, Ramiro Vélez. We do have a quorum, so let the record show the quorum of board members is present, that the meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Agenda item 2, public comments. No public comments at the moment. Agenda item 3, informational agenda items. Item A, the financial report, the financial division.
Mr. Rodriguez is on board.
Yes, he is. You have, see Mr. Molina as well. Ricardo Molina is present.
Ms. Flores is
Salvo Molina here.
No, Alisa cannot hear.
Yeah, okay, she's not connected. I don't.
She's not connected. Okay, all right.
Oh, she's just doing her due.
Mr. Santos.
Okay, thank you. Members of the board, we bring you our superintendent's monthly financial report as of May 31st. We had a cash investment balance of over 222 million. We had 94 million in our general fund and over 82 million in our bond fund, but you know that we continue to have construction projects going. Our yield is at 1.27%. Our current pool rate, as you know, the market rates have really been low, is at 0.66%. Our administrative cost ratio, we're actually at 8.34%. We budgeted 8.28%, but both of those are below the amount allowed by TA, which is 11%. Our unaudited revenues, we're at 322 million or 79% of our budget. Last year at this time, we were at 78%. In our current year-to-date expenditures, we are at 335 million or 79%. And last year at this time, we were at almost 80%. Our current collection rate at 98.15%. We had some concerns about the economy right now, but it does look like our taxpayers continue to make their tax payments. We collected over 221 million, and our delinquent collection rate is 62.88%. So there's some comparisons to the same time last year. The report also included the bids and proposals awarded through May 31st, 2020. I don't know. Our investment report actually is our quarterly report that we're required to submit to the board per our investment policy. So there's some information on our last quarterly investment activity.
Quick question on the general fund, the 94 million, is that a figure that's gonna change soon, or do we have any payments going on that's gonna?
Yeah, usually our payroll runs about 30 million a month.
Okay.
So, you know, for the next 3 months, June, July, and August, we just got paid yesterday. And so, you know, we do expect it to start coming down.
Okay, that's after yesterday's payment.
Yeah, this was before yesterday's payment.
Okay, so it should be about 60.
Yeah, now it should be about 60, but we continue to also get our state money in too.
Right.
So hopefully it'll stay about, you know, 60, 70 million.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item B, United ISD technology update.
Good afternoon, members of the board, and the auditor, Mr. Santos. In an effort to continue with our rated status statewide, we have to keep up what's going on with technology, obviously with the COVID-19. There are a lot of changes within the district. This afternoon, we have a little update for you all. There's divided in 3 sections. The last 2, professional development and instructional technology, I'll be going over that. This first section of the district's network and infrastructure, I'm going to ask Director Bettis to present this first item. Mr. Bettis.
Thank you, Dr. So, President, members of Santos, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, just wanted to give you an update on our network infrastructure we've been working in the last 3 months. One of the things that we're doing, we're upgrading 4 of the main switch at central office. That will help us to avoid a possible bottleneck when our campuses are trying to broadcast from the classrooms going to the outside. It's a big investment, it's about $150,000. We're upgrading United South High School because the issue that happened here is this COVID-19 virus. It's caught everybody by surprise by not being able to broadcast to the outside. Internally, our network runs pretty fast, but the ability to broadcast to the outside is a little limited. We have half of our campuses are 50%. They can broadcast from half of the classrooms, but we do have the other half that can do 30%. With the upgrade of the core, we're trying to bring that 30% to 50%, or maybe even more, that we can test it later on. But I'm a numbers person, so until the switch is installed and fully functional and tested, I'll be able to tell you we have a 50% capability. We're also getting an additional connection through Region 1. This is has been planned since November. We applied for E-rate funds for that second connection. That is going to be our backup connection in the event our main connection gets interrupted in Tula or another place. We have right now a backup with Time Warner at 1 gig. 1 gig, the whole district going to the cloud is not enough. So for the 10 gig capacity through Region 1 through a consortium, we can get, for the same price, we can get 10 gigs. But that connection is coming down the pipe, they're installing the fiber, and it should be up and running by September. One of the things that we're trying to do is trying to funnel all of our Google traffic through one of those lines, so that for all of our Google connectivity, it will be well taken care of. We have also issued purchase orders last week to buy 1,100 more cameras that we're going to install in our computers. The rest of our computers already come with a built-in camera. There are older computers that need camera, and that would equip us with every classroom having a video camera, so that we don't limit instruction as far as these are the classrooms that can broadcast, these are the classrooms that cannot. We allow them to do the broadcast capability at all the classrooms. So remember the 50% limitation due to the network bandwidth. We're also installing access points or Wi-Fi devices outside our campuses, something that we always have gone against because of security reasons. You don't want to get the hackers parked in your parking lot, be able to connect to your network. This is the new normal. Now what we want is for the students to be able to come in, park, or be in the foyers and outside and be able to have connectivity. I also met with the city and we explained this map that we're doing, and the city is sort of counting with this new radios that we're doing around our campuses. For example, high schools will get 3 devices, so all the parking lot area will be Wi-Fi accessible. This project, we already done 4 campuses in 3 days. They're expiring. We're waiting for the devices to come in. Our goal is to start the school year with these routers that will be outside our parking lot so the kids can access them. We're also doing a pilot project for 20 buses that will have also a Wi-Fi capabilities. I asked Mr. Aranda to give me the list of the 20 routes that go the further so that kids can use it throughout the year. In the event we have to shut down and because of COVID, you can park these buses in some colonias as long as they have a good cellular connection, and it will act like a huge Wi-Fi. You can park it close to a housing development or close to an apartment, and the bus can give you up to 60 connections. The kids don't have to get in the bus, but they can be outside and they can receive the wireless services. We're starting with 20. If the project works, we'll probably ask for more funding for that, or through the COVID funds. In addition, I wanted to mention that we have 16,500 computers that are hardwired. We're not getting rid of a lot of our desktops. That is our backup in case something happens to the Wi-Fi. We always knock on wood. I mean, if it happens, then you have your hardwired computers in your network for online testing. As you know, 2023, all online testing, all testing will be online. So we're getting ready for that already. Student mobile learning devices, you all awarded a bid for 7,500 last month, Chromebooks. We're bringing to you today another probably 7,000 Chromebooks, and we're buying an additional 7,800 iPads for the pre-kinder, kinder, and first. And Mr. Gonzalez will go over the plan in a minute. We're also bringing for your approval the MiFi device bid. We went out for bids, and we're also happy to announce that we got a grant through T-Mobile. And the grant does give us some free devices. We're going to have a conference call with them tomorrow. For every device you buy, for every 1,000, you can get 250. We don't know how many we need because we're working through the online registration process where we're asking the parents, do you have access at home, internet? As of last week, we had 2,200 parents that they say we don't have internet access, out of 35,000 that have completed their own registration process. So there's gonna be a chance, but for every 1,000 devices we buy, we get 250. We get 25% back. So that's in a nutshell, sir, an update where we're at on the infrastructure. So we've been going pretty fast, getting devices on the students' hands, and so far so good. I don't know if you have any questions, or you want Mr. Gonzalez to present? And
Quick question, or a lot of the upgrades had already been discussed, had already been in the works. You just had to accelerate.
Yes, sir.
Pretty much everything.
Yes, sir. We actually brought the bid to you back in February, before COVID, to apply for E-rate. We submitted an application, and we're planning to use bond infrastructure funds as a match if the application gets funded. Yes, sir.
Obviously, this is a big change for the district, the teachers, everybody's pretty much having to learn a new way of living. What were your major challenges when COVID started, and how do we address them?
Major challenges was basically starting from creating the calling centers. First we had to create calling centers. Electronic signatures, that was another one. Employees couldn't grab a pen and sign the contract, so we had to automate a lot of processes, a lot of certification processes. Major challenges is everybody having ideas that takes 4 to 6 weeks to get done, and we had to get them done in 1 week. And we did. We came through with every single project on time so far. We've been very efficient on that. Thank God we had that bid that we had taken to the board. So I was requisition ready when Mr. Santos told me, I want you to bring South High School to the 50%. I had a 3-page requisition ready to be signed, ready to be processed, and that expedited. So we were anticipating, in a way, upgrading our network. I mean, part of the bid that we brought to you in February includes upgrading the whole Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is already 8 years old.
District-wide.
Yes, district-wide. I mean, can you live with a router at your house that is 8 years old? Not when you have 2 of your kids. So that's the same thing applies when you have 1,000 students that are depending on this Wi-Fi device that is here. Luckily, back then, we chose to put one on every classroom. And that was very, very helpful because it can take care of 30 to 40 devices. But the major challenge that we have is the additional load that we're putting on the network. To be able to broadcast to the outside, to be able to answer questions when a teacher is trying to log in and we don't know if she has T-Mobile, if she has Time Warner, all of that. The number of phone calls as the Department of Instruction knows, tremendous, but it's a challenge that we accept. We do the best we can, the best we can.
I don't hear the Wi-Fi.
Any other questions you may have?
I've got one. When you were
Antena?
And then travels in.
outside the building,
Okay, let's say if it goes to Peñitas on that,
Never worked there.
the bus
Wi-Fi access.
or the station.
Like, why do they need to have access to our network necessarily?
Yes, sir. It runs on a separate network, separate from admin and finance. All of that is separate. There's an instructional network and there's the admin network. We can control the times that we turn those routers on. Like we would turn them on during school hours. Let's say we shut down because of COVID. We will provide access only from 8 to 5. We can limit the times that we can access, but we can do from 6 to 10 at a designated location. We have a lot of security installed in place that would be extended to those Wi-Fi devices. But they are separate networks. And as you know, when we present to the city is trying to expand their network as well, their libraries, the different community centers. And we're building together a big map, a big mesh, where they're gonna see our radius of coverage. Let's say they have a community center here and we have a school here. Then that covers this whole area. So we're working with them and providing those maps. So this is one of the best things we ever done. The extension of our Wi-Fi to the outside is gonna go very far.
So all of our important stuff is,
Yes, sir. It's secure under a different
grades,
protocol.
finance.
Yes, sir. All of that is separate. The only thing that we cannot cover is if somebody shares their password. That's beyond our control.
Like with one of our employees.
Yes, one of our employees. But we have spent money on cybersecurity training, where every employee, as you know, you have to go through some training too, where everybody gets trained on phishing emails, pretending to be us and telling you have to reset your password. Our users are being trained how not to respond to this kind of events.
Plus, everybody that has a password knows it's unique to themselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, because I will not be able to tell the difference if that's really Hector Perez when they're stealing the information.
And how often do they need to change password?
Every 6 months. Every 6 months. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Every 6 months, and the teachers every 45 days.
Now, does everybody get feedback of where they left off? Like, let's say somebody's password is accidentally made up for somebody else. Next time they log on, they're gonna have some indication that
Yes.
something's different than what they remember.
We have the two-step authentication. They can activate it where you actually get a text on your phone and you enter that number. So if somebody changed your password without telling you, the next time you log in, it's gonna tell you right. When they're trying to do it, it's gonna tell you right away.
So
Somebody's trying to.
let's say somebody has somebody else's password
Mhm.
and the correct person uses their own password again. Wouldn't they have an indicator that would tell them that something happened?
No, in that case, you will never know that
But
somebody
not
else
on a
uses
foreign
it.
device or.
I thought we did a deal where whatever the last thing was, you were reminded of where you left off and where you last did.
No, not in our system. It will tell you that somebody's trying to log in onto a separate device using your login and your password. That's how we alert you that something like that's going on. But if they're successful, they could be using your password and you will never know until you change it. That's why it's important to change it as often as you can.
Mr. Perez,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir. How would the pilot project to outfit the 20 buses with the mobile Wi-Fi, how would it work? If they go to, let's say, like Rio Bravo or Peñitas, how would it work for the service to give to the students on the homes?
Very good question, sir. We're limited by the cell phone provider. So we will try to put two different cards. You can put a T-Mobile and an AT&T, for example, and that would give you the service. It has the ability to have two different SIM cards on the router. But there are some areas where there's no access. They will have to go to the school and go to the parking lot to be able to access the Wi-Fi. Yeah, we're limited in some small areas throughout the county that there's no cell phone connectivity.
That would be used for the students to use it so they get the homework or the work at the teachers, or what would it be used for?
Yeah, for that, sir. For that, if they need to do a Google Classroom or instruction, they can go park at the school and they'll get the service. I can tell you at Cenizo, there's no cell phone access whatsoever. We tried every single carrier, nothing works over there in El Cenizo. Rio Bravo, you get service with T-Mobile, and as you get closer to the city, you start to see better service.
That for those who have transportation to get to the school, how would it work?
You can use it as buses traveling. No?
Yes, yeah, I didn't understand the question, sir.
The question is, how can they use it if the students are in the bus as they're coming or going home?
Oh, yeah,
Can they utilize any of that?
yes, sir. Yes, sir, that's why we're choosing the longest routes. Kids that are on the bus for an hour and a half, they'll have the advantage of having Wi-Fi built in on the bus. They'll use it, but when COVID hopefully not hits again and we have to shut down, we will park those buses in strategic locations so that the students can use them.
And it would work except when you get to that spot.
Yes.
Your cell phone, right?
Yes, and there's very small spots. We've been looking at the map from T-Mobile, and it covers quite a bit throughout the county. So we have two different solutions to provide for the students.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Any other questions?
Questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Perez.
The next slide.
No, sir.
With all the infrastructure, there's also a lot of planning involved, and obviously with teachers, everything happened. This is a quick overview on the professional development. Under Sila Tabuada and Judy Garcia are our directors. You design virtual core content technology integrated training by level and subgroup. So we look at the elementary, this past month of June, and we're still going on. Number of sessions for the month of June, 232. We have 17 scheduled for July. This is elementary.
That's
Middle
teachers.
school,
That's
it's for teachers.
Yeah.
Elementary teachers. For middle school teachers, number of sessions in June, 185, 15 in July. For high school, we have 191 sessions for teachers, 7 right now in July. And those numbers will grow as we're surveying teachers what their needs are. We have also the new teacher academy coming up July 27th to 30th. Obviously, the classroom management. A key component to our A-rated rating district we have now is our curriculum resource, our district scope and sequence. This is key. And we've always had this, obviously be online. The instructional technology CIT department will also provide new teachers all access training needed to transition into the new assignment. This is obviously very new to a lot of us, and the training continues with the T-test support program, the response to intervention, special ed, dyslexia, GT, bilingual program. On the right side, you see the session topics included. It could be the general education setting, the special ed, the bilingual, and the gifted and talented. Next slide. The instructional technology department. Just so you know, the department itself, we had a helpline, and this was really for a lot of our parents and students from the month of March to June 2020, this month. We've had over 5,000 calls. And really, most of the calls were with the lesson itself, how we work it. It could have been the parent helping the child. A lot of times we had high school students. Well, we continue to monitor that, and we address every single call as it came in. The Student Parent Learning Hub, when it started from March 24th to May 28th, we had over 1,400 hits of calls as well. The Teacher Campus Administrative Learning Hub, again from March to June this month, over 14,000. And then transitional virtual training, March 31st, April 3rd, 56 sessions, over 600 attendees, and these are not duplicated. The skill support virtual training, and again, the list goes on, 103 sessions. I'd like to point out the bottom, the second to last one, the total transitions, skill-based and curriculum integrated virtual training. This is not only teachers, also admin and support staff. From March 31st, May 21st, 230 completed sessions. And I can say that because I was one of them. So it's all staff. The district department training will continue with our UIZ police, career technology, discipline management, special ed, tax office, new teacher orientation. Because it's a lot of new components, we consider these opportunities for employees. So it's always a silver lining. What's going on, we're obviously going to get all of us more well-versed with technology, including myself. So always a silver lining as we continue. The next slide. Here's the proposed one-to-a-mobile device learning initiative Mr. Perez talked about earlier. The Apple iPads for the early childhood continues with the Dell Chromebooks for second and third grade. The fourth, fifth grade, these are new devices. They go through all the way to seventh grade. For fifth grade, the 3-year device, the cohort, and it was always seventh grade. And the list goes on. I will advise you that the timeline for this, we don't have to worry about our high school students. They'll have their device already. We're looking at the 8th grade that's coming in, and also the early childhood all the way to third grade. The rest will already have their devices when school day, the first day of school. Finally, from the high school area, with all this COVID that happened, normally with a recovery or technology, we're using the Odyssey, where our students that are identified to recovery credit are the ones who get in. In this case, we had students we had to do for advancement. Obviously, it was like the government economics. It's a 9-week course. The second 9 weeks came up, we had to get them all in. When we started, there were 2,000 students. So we look at the number of students served last year, we had 1,005. Just in Odyssey, where this year we had 2,318. And that's a good number. These are the students that we reach to help them graduate. The total number of courses requested, half credit or whole credit, from 2,616 to 3,743. The total number of credits requested, the list is there. At the very bottom, I'd like to show the total number of credits from one year to the next. 967.5, we had 1,321.5. And again, as a district, we continue to be proactive approach in the plan implementation process. As you heard Mr. Perez earlier, the infrastructure is being set up. From the curriculum standpoint, we cannot move forward without the infrastructure. One department cannot work without the other. And of course, we're already doing a survey, not only, as Gloria will tell you later, with our parents to see how we can best address the needs. We're also doing a survey with our teachers. What can we do better as a district in our department to help us address the needs of our students? I want to thank you for your support, Mr. Santos, as well.
Question? Just a quick question, Dave. And I think your department's done great. I know that basically from spring break to now, it's been pretty much nonstop for your technology department. Having to adjust to the virtual educational setting, but what about our teachers, Mr. Gonzalez? I noticed that you have, 200, maybe 191 coming in for these trainings. Given that, we're all in the virtual setting now, and we may find ourselves again in this virtual setting, it's becoming kind of a new norm for us. Is there any move, or I guess maybe I should suggest, is there any requirement for our teachers to, do an online technology course? I know we can't make it part of the contract, but if there's a requirement for our teachers to get into that, looks like not all of them are actually accessing that availability. How do you propose to enforce some of that on?
Let me make this statement, Mr. Montemayor. For the trainings we have established about the beginning of the year, the principals have provided a checklist for our staff. These are all the trainings they have to adhere to, be sexual harassment, all the required ones. We're gonna make it mandatory for our teachers. There's gonna be some certain coursework that they're gonna have to be required to fulfill as the school year goes on, because obviously with the change, we need to adapt. We need to modify how we address the needs of our children. Obviously, we gotta make sure that our teachers are very well versed in the technology aspect. So we're gonna continue to do that. We're gonna make some of these trainings mandatory, absolutely.
I think that'll be important. You're out there, you can talk to some of these more seasoned teachers that we have, more seasoned administrators. And they had an issue adapting. I know some of the younger ones are probably catch up real quick,
I think, when you look at the number of people that we trained this summer, I think you're right on target. These are people that have struggled with, like some of us, we weren't very proficient. And I think that's where we're trying to get these people back, to bring them to the level where I think if we go to distance learning in virtual, going to be able to deliver. We have some employees that struggled, and we understand that, but I think this is who we're targeting now in the summer.
Yes.
Then during the year, I think we're going to go ahead and request, put that as part of the in-service. And we have a work day or staff development at the campus.
And lastly, I guess, on some of these younger children, maybe the parents may not be as quick to pick up on the use of technology. I saw you have some parent-student learning hubs. Is that a training for parents as well, so they can come in and they can learn how to access?
Absolutely, sir. And we've had some parents say, "Yeah, I didn't know that you had this." So I think it's just a matter of making it accessible, the fact that we have trainings for our parents, letting them know, communicate that we have this for you. So as a district, we probably need to do a better job of that, but obviously we do have the training for our parents. But at this time, I want to assure the board, the leadership, Mr. Santos, we realize that technology is not going away. And obviously, in this day and age, with everything that's going on, we have to be ready for such technology. We will be ready. All the plans going on, our coordinators in our department, they're working very closely with our execs, myself, getting feedback not only from our principals, we're trickling down to the teachers. We need to make sure we have a good product for our kids. At the end of the day, we can't get our kids to learning, and that's what our business is about. So we're going to continue to do that. We will have a good product.
One of the items that I just need to share with the board, initially we were hoping that the stimulus money that the federal government was going to give us, we looked at using that money to pay cash for the Chromebooks and so on and so forth. What happened is obviously, the commissioner was able to, what he did, he put that money on the regular funding to be able to save some money for next year. So we have to find other means to be able to afford and do it. So I know Mr. Davies looked at a lease. That's the only area we're going to be a little short. They probably won't get here until probably September. But our plan is, assuming that we have students on campus, a third of our students on campus, then we're going to be able to provide the other students the Chromebook or the other technology until the new one comes in.
Yes.
So we got a plan to be able to take care of everybody who stays home and does virtual. We'll be able to have a Chromebook to be able to work with them. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Item C, proposed changes to the 2020-2021 student handbook, the bus rider handbook, and technology and use guide.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Board of Trustees and members of the audience.
We have minimal changes to the student handbook, and the bus rider handbook was just wording changes. The technology use guidelines also has minimal changes in our books, because Ms. Judy Garcia, the Director of Instructional Technology, she has her own separate one-to-one mobile learning device handbook that parents sign off on when they issue those Chromebooks and laptops, et cetera. Some of the main areas in the handbook and would be over suicide and mental health awareness. The state is requiring that we provide directory information. We are also requiring a doctor's note for over-the-counter prescriptions or medication that is going to be issued by our nursing staff. Our weighted courses, tier 1 and tier 2. And those are the most significant changes in this portion. And I'll be back in a little bit to talk about the student code of conduct and any changes we have there. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Ramirez.
no, I was gonna ask her, those books that you sent us, would it be able to reach to the students also, to the houses of each student?
We have one online, and when a parent goes through the parent portal, they make a decision whether they would like a hard copy or if they want to read it online. And therefore, those who request a hard copy, we have already submitted our purchase requisition so that we can have available one for each child whose parent requested a hard copy. So we will provide a hard copy of the book, the entire book for them, if that's what the parent wishes.
Do the parents have a voice? In other words, voice, could they say something in regard to whatever it is in the directions and regulations of the book? Could they say anything, or could they make some kind of advices?
I think, Mr. Ramirez, they can. I think what they need to do is obviously send us, you know, you can send it through my office, Ms. Rendon, or even Ms. Perez, any concerns that they have, and then obviously we want to make sure legally that it has to be addressed. But yes, it can. Yes, sir.
We
Okay.
already received input through the District Educational Improvement Council. We met in May, which has parent representatives, it has administrator, teacher representatives, and they reviewed all of the changes, as well as our attorneys reviewed those changes that are in the books we shared with you. So we do have a representative in that council.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bellis.
Sure. Agenda item 4, at this time we'll move on to the consent agenda items. There's letter A through I. There's approval for monthly disbursements, budget amendments, designating non-equal to calculate 2020 tax rate, approval warning business qualification, several interlocal agreements between Webb County and the district for the juvenile JP court coordinators. A couple of MOUs that we have for the Webb County Head Start and for the SCAN, the juvenile board. We have a motion for approval on items A through I. Make a motion to approve I.
Second,
Motion and a second.
Question for Mr. Cruz. Do I need to abstain,
No, you don't legally have to abstain.
even though it's a Webb County Head Start?
Yes, because you don't own the Head Start.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So we have motion and a second and discussion. All those in favor, aye.
aye.
All those opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Agenda item 5, items for individual considerations. Item 5A, approve donations.
Yes, Mr. Bellis, members of the board, it is recommended that the board of trustees graciously accept the following donations. They'll be attached to the minutes. We have 2 donations of over $1,000. UISD Partners for Scholars receive a donation of $5,000 from Robert and Seth Tijerina. That's our financial advisor. Veterans Memorial Elementary Dance Team receive a donation of $2,526.84 from the Barrett's Parents Booster Club to be used for the dance team uniforms. And we have several donations under $1,000 this month, grand total of $8,000. $166.84, and we graciously thank these people for helping our students within our campuses.
Is there a motion regarding approval of donations as
So
presented?
moved.
Second,
Molina.
And second, discussion. All those in favor, aye.
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 Ramirez, aye.
Molina, aye.
Both motion passes. Item 5B, approval of board minutes for the month of March 2020 and May 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. All those in favor, aye.
Aye. Molina.
Ramirez, aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 5C, approval optional flexible school day program for 2020-2021 school year to continue the past positive growth student success. Lyndon B. Johnson High School.
Good afternoon, members of the board, members of the audience. We bring before you the fourth consecutive year for offering this past program at LBJ High School. This is for at-risk population with regards to students not meeting the requirements to graduate. And so this campus, what they have done is they have looked and screened these particular students. And you look at the PowerPoint presentation. There's certain criteria that would have to be met. And so it allows students to be in attendance for a portion of the school day. So what we're looking at is we have two different shifts. We have an AM shift and a PM shift where 8 to 12 would be the first group that would go in. 12:30 to 4:30 would be the second group that would go on in. And it's one dedicated teacher assigned to these particular students. They do Odyssey Wear. All of their instruction is online. And so we evaluate the student information, student data. This year, our spring semester is usually when we peak. We had the fall semester, there was 39 students, in the fall semester who were enrolled. 33 credits were recovered. In the spring semester, 62 credits, and that's when we normally do peak. So students who met graduation, I think if we have one more student that meets graduation requirements, it's great. In this case, we had 20 students who were able to meet graduation requirements because of this program. And the total number of credits, because we did cut their semester short the spring semester, we had 95 credits that our students were able to get and meet graduation requirements. This compares to about 140, 150 from previous years on average. But it was because of the cut semester. So we're just asking for reapproval of this program to continue at LBJ High School, which is our past program.
Motion to approve. Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Molina.
Aye. Ramirez, aye.
All those opposed? None opposed, motion passes. Item 5D, approval waiver to use as an alternate district selected kindergarten reading and instruction for the 2020-2021 school year.
Bringing this waiver to you, this is a beginning of the year screener. This is a reading that they take the reading levels of these particular students. And so we are using the MAP measures of academic progress that we would like to utilize for our students at the beginning of the year in kindergarten. And so we want to use the instrument that they used for 2019-2020 school year. And this has to go for board approval.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second, discussion. All those in favor, aye.
Aye. Molina. Yeah.
Aye.
Ramirez, aye.
All those opposed? None opposed, motion passes. Thank you, ma'am. Item 5E, approval of 2020-2021 student code of conduct.
I have a brief presentation for you, but there's maybe about 6 significant changes. One of the first things that was brought to our attention is, do we have jurisdiction when a child is at home during virtual remote learning instruction if a child is behaving inappropriately while being taught? And we had our that information, and we did. Our language in our student code of conduct included that because we perceive that instruction to be an extension. It's a school activity, but it's happening in a different location. So we already have jurisdiction, and we added some new language just to reinforce that. Virtual conduct, children, we want to put some parameters in place as far as dress code, give parents some tips as well as far as what their child needs to have a successful remote learning experience. So we have some of that information in our student code of conduct. We've added 2 violations to our student code of conduct. Level 1 violation will be if a child does not comply with our health and safety protocols that we have in place. If a child refuses to wear a mask, that would be a level 1 violation. If a child refuses to get his temperature checked, that would be a level 1 violation. Those are just refusing to comply with what we have in place. We have a level 2 violation, which would be a child acts in a manner that would endanger someone else's well-being. For example, intentionally coughing on someone else, or causing fear that that person is being infected with a coronavirus, etc. So that's a level 2 violation. We've added those violations to our student code of conduct. We also added some language there with regards to FERPA, transportation, grading guidelines. It's a generic statement that if there is a school closure, we may need to adjust those guidelines. We may, or those protocols that we have in place, depending what the district needs to move forward with. And any type of due process that's required under the student code of conduct, we're going to continue with that, but it may be in a virtual setting or it may be teleconference that we continue with those. And those would be our primary changes to the student code of conduct. Sure.
How do you enforce the violation if they're at home? How do you sanction, what kind of sanctions? You can't send them to the JJD or to the Step Academy or something like that. How does that get enforced?
We have an online referral that a teacher can go ahead and submit an email to an administrator, and that administrator will have a conference. Of course, we always encourage our teachers to email the child, have a private conversation with the child. So it's just a matter of what you do in the classroom, the teacher does at home. And what do you usually do? You address that with the child, you can email them, you can call their parents, you can have a discussion, you can remind them online. That's not how we address each other. We need to be respectful and use each other's proper name. Would you please, focus on the lesson at hand? So it's redirection, and that's typically what teachers do in the classroom in a regular, building. And that's what we want them to do in the remote learning as well.
Can you eventually disconnect them?
We will want to mute them, and we do have a statement in there that if continued misbehavior continues, we can remove them from that session. So we do have that. And we've always had in our student code of conduct that continued misuse of computers can lead for them to lose that privilege.
It seems like though, like you had a kid at school and they're misbehaving, you said, well, we're gonna throw you out of the school. That might not be too effective. So throwing them off the computer doesn't seem to me like it's gonna be much of a deterrent. I don't know. I mean, I can't think of one either, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna.
And it would depend on the nature of the behavior. But we do want the teacher to redirect. We do want the counselor to reach out to that child. We do want to teach them appropriate behavior. We are working on several slides that would teach a child what is the expected behavior, because some of us may think that, or some children may think that it's acceptable to be multitasking, and a teacher may want that child to just be looking at her during the entire instruction. So we have expectations that will be shared with students, with administrators, and they will select those expectations so that children can review those, teachers can review them with the children and say, this is what's expected. And that's part of our PBIS. It's teaching them the positive behavior we want to see from them. Removing a child from online instruction would be our last resort. And it'd have to be something extremely serious. Maybe perhaps someone, some public lewdness, or indecent exposure, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain situations where you'd be left no choice.
Exactly.
But legally, like on the purpose of state statutes and whatnot, whatever guidance is, we can't just throw a kid out of our regular school because we have trouble with them. So I'm imagining we're going to be limited on what we can do in this regard.
You have to go through the whole due process, just like if it was, in front of you. In order to do that, you can't easily just
suspend a kid, you can suspend them for up to 3 days. And then from there, then you have to have your due process to remove them for 45 days. They continue to misbehave in an alternative setting, then it's, JJAP. So you gotta go through that progressive discipline either in or out of the classroom.
I mean, I get all that when we have physical facilities for them to go to. But when we have buildings, we can't just say, go to your house and we're done with you.
Mhm.
So we're kind of left with no option here,
What about
because
parents?
when you turn somebody off on the computer, you're basically kicking them out of.
Yeah.
Out of.
That's not gonna be happening just at nauseam like that.
What about parents though? I mean, I've heard situations where parents don't want their child to show the video or, to show their face on camera or enable the video. How do you deal with those parent issues? They're not participating like all the other students are. They're not complying with the district rules and regulations. Does the code address, not the student necessarily, but it's coming from the parent. Parent is not allowing.
We have, first of all, for some children, we have paper packets that we could provide. And I know the curriculum instruction department has that. So we could provide a paper packet of any type of, remote instruction that's not being provided. But of course, the benefits of remote instruction are much greater than a paper packet.
But you go back to the code, Javi, it's either religious or philosophical objection in order for them to be exempt from any type of school thing. So if there's already commissioner decisions as to what a religious or philosophical objection. We don't want parents to think that they can just liberally not participate in a classroom setting, whether it's on campus or in a remote instruction. So unless they can validate that, then they're gonna be, and then, they have to be part-time.
I have a motion to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Ramirez, aye.
All those opposed? None opposed, motion passes.
Mr. Release, we're gonna have to reconsider the awards. You already passed it, but we can go back to it on the bids and proposals. I got a message that I don't think that there's something that purchasing is ready for. Which is item 4D, it was under consent. So I think if Ms. Jackson can explain that, or somebody.
Do a motion to reconsider.
Yeah, you need to do a motion to
Motion to
reconsider.
reconsider item 4D.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Ramirez, aye.
Motion to table that one.
Second.
But she's gonna come in and explain what's going on with that real quick.
But right now with a motion to reconsider, we're gonna hear
Yes.
explanation.
Mhm. I think some bids may be ready, but not others.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to clarify that RFP 2020-018 face masks and gloves district-wide, we will bring to you at the July board meeting.
But all the other stuff is, you're recommending to approve.
Okay, so we'll need a reapproval, right, Mr. Cruz?
Yes.
For item 4D.
Approve everything with the exception of the protective gear?
2020-018.
So
2020-018 is the only thing that's not.
Motion to table that particular item for the July
meeting and approve everything else. Second motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Ramirez, aye.
All those opposed, none opposed, motion passes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Item 5F, approve disposition of mobile learning device to graduating senior students at Lyndon B. Johnson High School Early College.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Veliz, members of the board, Mr. Santos. This time, we request your approval for the disposition of mobile learning devices to graduating senior students at OBJ High School Early College. As per the Department of Instructional Technology, one-to-one mobile learning device, parent, guardian, and student guidelines and procedures. It is for a cost of $20 per student per Chromebook, and interested students are listed along with the information for each machine.
These are students that have had these mobile learning devices, they're freshmen
Yes,
for the
sir.
last 4 years.
Yes, sir. They were the cohort that had them since ninth grade.
And what we're doing, we're buying, you were upgraded.
Right, and we got them for $20.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve. Second, motion and a second.
Approve.
Favor, aye.
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 Ramirez, aye.
Those opposed, none opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 5G, public hearing. Solicit input from the public interest parties on an application Corazon Energy LLC for a limitation on appraised value on qualified property pursuant to chapter 313 of the Texas Tax Code. Time is now 12:54. Do we have a motion to open public hearing?
Motion to open.
Second,
And the second, all in favor, aye.
Aye. Molina.
Ramirez, aye.
Those opposed, none. Public hearing is now open. Time is 12:54.
We have some people, not that you wanna go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Board members, superintendent. During this public hearing, we do have some members from Corazon Energy and also Baywa. We're going to explain where we're at with this project as far as getting it online and onto the tax rules for UISD. This project, it's about a $464 million investment according to the state comptroller, of which about $303 million peak year through 2022 is going to be taxable. We're going to get on the tax rules for UISD. The INS aspect of the tax is going to be fully taxed, even though there's going to be a limitation. But as far as the status of this project, there should be two gentlemen, Sam Gregson from Corazon and George Gano from Baywa. You might explain where we're at with this project.
You wanna go ahead? Can they speak?
Yes, okay.
Go ahead.
Great. Can everyone hear me all right?
Sir, yes, we got it.
Great. Well, thank you to United ISD board members for allowing me to speak today. We usually make it a point to attend meetings in person. Given the circumstances, we appreciate and welcome the opportunity to call in remotely. My name is George Gano. I'm the lead developer on the Corazon Solar Project. I represent Corazon Energy LLC and Baywa RE Solar Projects out of Irvine, California, the owner of the project. I'm accompanied by Sam Gregson via Zoom as a senior tax consultant. The approval of our proposed Chapter 313 limitation on appraised value will allow us to construct a solar generation facility in Webb County. As you all may know, the proposed location of the project will be north of Highway 59 between Laredo and Ranchitos Las Lomas in the central part of the county. The proposed project is anticipated to have a total capacity of 400 megawatts, all of which will be located in Webb County and United ISD. Currently, we're working with an engineering, procurement, and construction, an EPC consultant to begin land clearing next month, and the remainder of the construction will last until May 2021. We estimate that the project will employ up to 400 full-time employees during construction. Lastly, in full disclosure, I grew up in Laredo. I graduated from Alexander, so I would love to see a solar project of this size.
Oye, Cavazos, ¿tienes a alguien que pueda venir a llevar mi unit a que le pongan sticker?
Apologies for that.
You'll bring Mr. Gano.
There you go.
Oh, I was just saying, I'd love to see a project of this size in Webb County. We thank you for your support and look forward to working with United ISD.
Any questions?
Quick question.
Yes, sir. Mr. George,
Go ahead, Mr. Ramirez.
yes,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask Mr. Gono, Mr. George, you give us a date from what month to what to 1 year to the next. It was given until May, but I'm saying if there's bad weather, it will extend the final date of finishing this project.
Yes, there may be some delays. We've actually factored in bad weather days. So, working with our EPC consultant and our EPC contract that we have with them, they factor in bad weather days. So, to that extent, we're still on target for May of 2021.
Thank you, sir.
Any other items?
Right now, so the approval, I know we had submitted or sent to the state comptroller, and then we had asked for an extension of time for the review of the application. Well, that has been already completed.
That's already taken place. The comptrollers approved that application, so we're good to go. They also, there's an item on approving the tax limitation agreement, which has to be reviewed and approved by the state comptrollers in terms and conditions. And as far as the terms of what's been negotiated by UISD administration, Mr. Santos. So everything's on, we're finalized everything with the state comptrollers. To proceed with the project.
We have any public comments, this item? All right, so appreciate the presentation. At this time, do we have a motion to close the public hearing? Motion to close. Second. A motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Ramirez, aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
None. Carries. Public hearing is now closed. Time is 59. Item 5H, discussing possible action on a resolution adopting findings of fact and approving the application of Corazon Energy LLC for limitation on appraised value on qualified property pursuant to Chapter 313 of the Texas Tax Code.
Yeah, recommendations to approve the resolution as presented.
And we have
Mr. Veliz,
go ahead, sir.
we have two consultants that were hired by UISD, Fred Stormer of the Underwood Law Firm, pertaining to the findings of facts, and there's Dan Casey of Bo Casey, who did the financial economic impact of this project on UISD and its finances. You might wish to address it for a few minutes.
We have a president, we have them online.
They're online.
Okay, all right. If you can hear us, we want to say a few words on the findings.
Yes, this is Fred Storm with the Underwood Law Firm. If you all can hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to assist the district. And you have received quite a lengthy packet of supporting documentation to go with those findings of fact that we prepared on the district's behalf. And there's just a few things that I'd like to go over that we are required by statute for the board to consider before they approve an application and enter into an agreement. And so first, just for the record, I want to clarify, and I believe Ms. Benavides has taken care of this, but there's not a trustee or Mr. Santos that has any involvement or business relationship with Corazon or BayWa with regards to this project. If there is, now would be the time for a trustee to speak up.
There's no way.
Since there are no conflicts as we proceed, what the comptroller wants to make sure and what the legislator wanted to make sure is a few things for boards of trustees to consider to make sure entering into one of these agreements is in the district's best interest. Now, under the terms of the agreement and the statute required, what Corazon and BayWa are requesting is that they limit the value for maintenance and operation taxes of this qualified property from its peak value of about $303 million to $100 million for a 10-year period. That means they would only pay maintenance and operation taxes on that $100 million instead of paying it on the full 303. But at the same time, that full value would be available for INS tax purposes. And Mr. Casey has prepared a forecast as far as what that means for the district, and he can speak to that shortly. But what you all need to consider as a board of trustees are a few things that, but for this agreement and the tax incentives that are being offered, Corazon would not build this project in your district in the state of Texas, that they are building an eligible project, that they are a taxpayer in good standing, and that when all things are considered, based on all the information that was presented in the findings and by Mr. Casey, approving the application and entering into the agreement is in the best interest of the district. So I will just hit a few high points of that and a few high points of the agreement in the following few minutes that I have left. And just to point out that this project is a 400 megawatt project, as Corazon has pointed out, and renewable energy is eligible for these tax incentives. And so we can check the first box on that criteria. Secondly, the company itself is a taxpayer in good standing under the laws of the state of Texas, and can actively engage in business. And so the company is eligible to participate in one of these incentive programs. So we can check the second box. The other thing the comptroller requires an analysis is that in the long run, and in this case, they set the standard at 25 years, that the district is likely to receive more in M&O tax revenues than what the company will receive in tax incentives or tax savings on the maintenance and operations. And you can see in the attachments in the findings that when this analysis was run, that the agreement is estimated to receive substantially more in M&O tax savings to the tune of about $10.5 million. And so ultimately, this is a good benefit, or there's evidence for the board to find that this is a good benefit for the district. Another one of the requirements that the legislature wanted, the purpose for Chapter 313 in these tax incentives, is to bring some good jobs, and they note those as qualifying jobs, into your community. Normally, for a district your size, the legislature wants 25 new jobs, full-time jobs that pay 110% of the county's annual wage. Well, renewable energy projects don't do that. And in these circumstances, the legislature provides a mechanism for the school board to waive that 25 job requirement as long as the number of jobs to be provided are consistent with industry standards. And what we know from prior agreements and the certification from the applicant is that they are committed to provide one full-time job after construction is finished to maintain and operate this facility for every 100 megawatts of power. So for a 400 megawatt project, they are committed to 4 full-time jobs, which means they will pay 110% of the county's average manufacturing wage. They will provide at least 1,600 hours of work annually. They will provide health insurance benefits and pay 80% of those premiums. And these are not jobs that are scheduled to be replaced from other parts of the state. Another consideration that is very important for the comptroller is they don't want school districts to provide these tax incentives if the company was going to come into what we know in this situation is Baywa is a company with that has national resources and various projects in different states under development. We also know that renewable energy is very competitive in the state of Texas, and our market prices are very low. And so without the tax incentives that are being provided, the likelihood of this project being built is very slim. And it's more likely that the company would reallocate their limited resources to develop a project in one of the other states like California, Kentucky, North Carolina, or Illinois that's currently under consideration. Very quickly, kind of wrapping up, we know that the company is going to have to pay taxes on $100 million worth of their property, and they're going to have to make at least a $100 million qualified investment in order to keep this agreement alive. If they don't make that $100 million qualified investment, then under the terms of the agreement and under operation of law, this agreement will expire naturally. Just quickly, what I want to point out under the terms of the limitation agreement that we were able to negotiate on the district's behalf, before I turn this over to Mr. Casey to run over some of the school finance numbers, the supplemental payment and the revenue protection payment, is just that we we have one primary concern in mind, is that by entering into this agreement, the district should not be harmed. We know if the project isn't built, or if the project isn't built as large, that the district may not receive the full benefits that Mr. Casey will address with you in just a minute. But if you'll notice under the terms of the agreement, we have a provision in there that we just plainly state it's the intent of the parties that the risk of any negative financial consequence to the district in making the decision to enter into this agreement will be borne solely by the applicant and not by the school district. So from the outset, our primary concern is that the district is not harmed. And to make sure that doesn't happen, Mr. Casey or his firm will conduct an annual study to make sure that you are no worse off under the agreement than you would be without the agreement in place. And if you are, then the company is obligated to make up that difference for you. And so we've built in that revenue protection requirement into the agreement. Likewise, we have also built some benefit into the agreement in that as part of that tax savings, we've negotiated that the district will receive on an annual basis 47.5% of that tax savings that Corazon is scheduled to receive. And so at this point, that's just over, I believe it's close to $3.5 million if the project is built as planned. The only thing that I would caution is both the statute and the contract contemplate is that this analysis that's done on an annual basis will be calculated based on your actual school finance numbers and the school finance law at the time. So they will run this with real numbers. And so we estimate it to be about $3.4 million, but that can change from year to year based on what your ADA is, your weighted ADA, your enrollment, and the school finance law at the time. But you will be no worse off than with the agreement than you would be without the agreement, should you all choose to approve it today. Those are, if after you hear Mr. Casey's report and after you review of the contents of the findings, the board wants to approve the application, then you will make a determination that entering into the agreement is in the best interest of the district and the state of Texas, and that the information provided in the application is true and correct. We have done our due diligence to verify the information in the application, and we know that the applicant submitted this under oath, and so it will subject them to penalty of perjury if they misrepresented any information in that application. With that pretty much concludes my presentation, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you all might have. But it's been a pleasure working on this on behalf of the district, and I'm certainly want to make sure you guys feel good about doing this. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to hear them at this time. Otherwise, I think Mr. Casey can give his presentation.
I have a quick question, Mr. Stormer, on the initial 100 million qualified investment that's required. Do they have a time frame for that?
Yes, good question. They will have to do that within the next 2.5 years. They have the rest of this year, the next full calendar year, and the full calendar year after that in order to make that $100 million minimum investment. If they don't do it by December 31st of that second full year, then the agreement will expire by operation of law.
And then we keep going back. It's a 10-year agreement that what it would be at. After the 10 years, then the appraised value would go back to the full 303 million if the project is built in its entirety, or?
It will go back to its present market value at that time. We do anticipate some significant depreciation over the course of that 10 years, but after that 10-year limitation period, at the assessed value by your local appraiser, it will return to the books both at full value for maintenance and operation and the INS values. And they will be required to maintain their solar farm for at least another 5 years. If they fail to continue operations during that time period, which is known as the viable presence period, they will have to repay to the state and to the school district all those tax benefits and incentives that they had received the prior 10 years.
Do we have what is the amount of the tax savings? Is there an amount that actual number that you can give us that they're seeing as far as tax savings?
Yeah, the tax savings are listed in your findings and in the report that Mr. Casey prepared. But specifically, if you want to look at board findings, I believe it's either 10 or 11. It's board finding number 10. Let's see, and 11. I think the estimated tax savings. Without the agreement, they would pay almost $20.5 million. And with the agreement in place, they're estimated to only pay about $20.4 million in M&O taxes over that 10-year period. So they're saving roughly about $8 million, Dan, if that's right, in their, if the agreement is approved based on the values presented. If you look behind tab E of your finding, there is a one-page summary prepared by Mr. Casey's firm, and you'll see a column labeled tax savings to company, and that's just over $8 million, $8,030,000 based on the estimated values presented.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stormer.
Thank you.
Mr. Casey, are you?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. This is Dan Casey, Mo Casey Associates. Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Santos, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Yeah, as Fred indicated to you, and he gave you a very good summary on this, the way this thing starts, and if you look at that table that we have, if you look at column C, shows you the projected project values, and Mr. President, you raised a very good question about this, is that one of the things unique about solar projects is state law specifies how these are to be appraised. And basically by the 11th year, they can't be more than about 20% of the starting value. So you'll see that 303 million, as we get in the out years, it's about 65 million is what it drops down to. But during the course of that, one of the benefits you get out of that column 3 is you can fully tax this for INS purposes. So the full value is taxable, and over the course of this, that it will generate at your current tax rate about $4.5 million in additional INS taxes at that full value, that's typically in the front end where the values are higher. They're going to be in the $500,000 a year range as far as the benefits go. But over the course of that $4.5 million. Now, you raise a question that the $100 million limitation is really in effect for 7 years because their values start dropping below that by the 29-30 year. So the tax savings in there are generated in 7 years. If you look at column F, as Mr. Stormer indicated, the gross tax savings are about $8 million, but then we've got a couple of chargebacks that come into play. Now, one, under column G, we're estimating under current law and with the law we have, that they would owe you a hold harmless payment of $721,114 for the 22-23 year when this kicks in. The other thing that has changed in part of House Bill 3, we anticipated you collect about an additional $1.4 million in transition aid in that year as well. Given what we know now, given the caveats that Mr. Stormer gave you, that laws change and values may change and the rest. But then so the net tax savings after that are about $7.3 million. And then I think where your legal team did an excellent job for you is negotiating these supplemental payments, because the 47.5% is really higher than you see typically on these. So you're looking at about $3.5 million in supplemental payments given this schedule over those 7 years for the $100 million limitations in effect. And so the net tax savings to the company after the revenue protection payment and after the supplemental payments to the district is about $3.8 million. So I think this one, from the standpoint of, you do pick up some benefit on the INS side, about $4.5 million over the course of this because that's fully taxable, and then the revenue protection payment to the extent that happens, and then the supplemental payments at 47.5%. As I said, that's a high percentage, and that's $3.5 million for you. As things stand, there's no state chargeback or state aid penalty or anything else for receiving those supplemental payments. That's money that the district may use for any legal purpose. But I think that part of that makes this a very attractive proposal. One of the things you're hampered with, I can't recall last time I worked on a district that had a $100 million limitation. And normally you're faced with smaller ones than that. Now that does mean they're paying you about $1 million a year roughly in INS tax or in M&O taxes with that limitation in place. They're still paying that. And then, as I said, they're paying full value on the INS side. But I think that's I'll be happy to try to answer any further questions and see that hopefully it's helpful.
The monies that the district is gonna be receiving, is there any limitation as far as use of those monies?
No, well, I can let Mr. Storm address it. No, there's not. I mean, those can be used for any legal purpose. We've seen even some districts use some of those funds for foundations or for this school district foundation, anything along those lines. So it can be used for any purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Casey.
The motion approved.
Second. Motion and a second to approve. Do you have any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Molina.
Aye.
Ramirez, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Motion passes. Then item 5I will be discussion possible action on the actual agreement. Would that be correct, Mr. Cruz?
Yes, yes.
Agreement for the limitation of appraised value of property with district maintenance and operation taxes pursuant to chapter 313 of the Texas Tax Code. Approved. Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, Molina.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, Ramirez.
None opposed. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6, closed session. Time is now 1:19 p.m. and the board will adjourn to closed session pursuant to sections 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. The Texas Supreme Court to discuss agenda item 6A through 6C. Agenda item 7, reconvening from closed session. The time is now 2:08 p.m. and the board will take appropriate action on items necessary as discussed in closed session.
Mr. Belize, members of the board, recommendation is that an agenda item 7A is to retain the firm of Balls and Marroquin in connection with the Laredo ISD land transaction as depicted on agenda item 7A and presented.
So move.
Motion, do I have a second? Motion a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ramirez, aye.
All those opposed? None. Motion passes.
Agenda item 7B is to defer agenda item 7B as discussed in closed session.
So move.
Motion, do I have a second? Second. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Ramirez, aye.
None opposed. Motion passes.
Agenda item 7C, the recommendation is to approve the engineering study, subject of the land transaction as described in agenda 7C.
So move.
Second.
In a second. Any discussion?
To where, you know what?
All
Do this at this time.
those opposed? None opposed. Motion passes.
Recommendation agenda 7D is to approve the internal auditor's evaluation and extend her contract through June 30, 2022 as discussed.
So move.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ramirez, aye.
All those opposed? None. Motion passes. And agenda item 8, adjournment. Time is now 2:09 p.m.